Maybe that's why this giant patch of gray is coming through. I reject your reality and substitute my own. It's a little intense. Feel right. So clever. Over the duration of my career, and that's now going on 12 plus years now, which is kind of like hard to admit. Regardless, anyways, there have been countless interior design rules or even myths of these do's and don'ts have been this industry standard, as well as some really shady people that are just telling you what you should and shouldn't do. I know I am sometimes that person, but you know what? Daddy knows best, so that's why you're listening to me. Regardless of what I tell you at the end of the day, it is always up to you. You're the one living in your space, not me and not anyone else. So honestly, do what makes you happy. But just don't be surprised if I end up seeing your home and I have words to say. Today, we're going to debunk some of the most controversial interior design myths that are out there. And trust me, there are a lot of them, so I may have to turn this into a multiple part series. I'm gonna give you more insight into them and why they may or not work in your space. So buckle up because baby, this is going to be a wild ride. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I know I'm probably gonna get some hate for it, but you know what? Such is being online because everyone likes to attack me from my fashion, to my looks, to my hair, to my earrings. I'm used to at this point. Welcome back to my channel. If you've not seen my videos before, my name is Phoenix Gray, aka Design Daddy, and this channel is all about interior design. Regardless of your renting or renovating, I'm here to help. You can also join my free design newsletter in the description box below with the most commonly asked interior design questions because I see your comments. There's a lot of multiples on there, so please sign up for them. You're going to get all your answers. Make sure you're also following me on Instagram and TikTok at Mr. Phoenix Gray, where you can see all my daily design tips and tricks. I feel like we're just gonna have to make our own show with Design Daddy doing like myth-busting rules for interior design. So like, stay tuned because we're gonna have some fun with this one. Discovery Channel, we're waiting for this sponsorship. First on the list is an obvious one, but I have learned through my life and just meeting people that common sense and obvious predictions are really not so common and not so obvious to some people. Wink, wink. Nonetheless, myth number one on the list is dark colors will make your room smaller. This is only half true if we're being honest. Dark colors have the tendency to absorb light, which in turn collapses a space, and this myth is one that I am personally against. Reason being is that small rooms are going to be small no matter what color you use. But contrary to this popular belief, this is where you can get away with using a dark color. If you have enough light, and both natural and artificial, dark spaces and empty corners will always close off in a space if it's not well lit, therefore making the space feel and appear smaller. For example, if you have a small room and do it all in a really deep green color and have a window wall allowing as much natural light in as possible, during the day, it's not going to feel small at all. It's going to really feel more expansive because the color has expanded and you're looking at that color go all the way onto the ceiling to really envelop the entire room. On the other hand, if you have a small window pane that only highlights a bit of the room itself, it's going to appear much smaller regardless of the color. If that's your case, lighting up shadows in corners will help alleviate that claustrophobic feeling. Having table lights, wall sconces, and even floor lights more directed towards the ceiling and walls are going to really help expand that space than really isolating lights that are going down and into the middle. The secret to making any space look larger is with light, because you will have to really expand that space with your eye going to travel the path that's easiest, which is usually with light in a darker space. I have always been an advocate for darker and moodier colors, so do not let this myth make you feel like you can't use darker colors in your home. There is so much character and intimacy that can be added in with a deep, rich color that you cannot compare to any other saturated color. Out with the old and in with the bold. I feel like I just hate all of these myths because they're so dated and were made so long ago at this point that they're really not relevant anymore. The next myth that we're going to talk about is that you should always stick to a single wood species in your home. See what I mean when I say these myths about being dated? The only time I ever think about using one species in your home is when I think of that honeywood cabinet and the floors to match that took over the 80s and the 90s like there wasn't anything hotter.
That's hot.
Like this was the shit and everyone had to have it. And it's like, yeah, you're choosing an ugly wood species to begin with. Maybe it isn't the best idea to use it in every single aspect of your home. You know, just a thought. When you match all the wood in your home, it comes off very flat and one-dimensional, which in this day and age is not cute. It's giving builder-grade condo that comes in 50 shades of gray tones everywhere, which is also a straight-to-jail offense, by the way. It is 2024. We are not going back to the gray everything. The gray cabinets, the gray kitchen, the gray bathroom, the gray flooring is an absolute nightmare. If I see you with it, putting it in now, just a big no. My general rule I like to stick with is no more than 2 wood species in your home, or at least what is shared on a visual plane together for what you can see in one viewpoint. There are some exceptions, but this is my standard in my opinion. Using different wood species in your home allows for your space to feel much more interesting, and it gives your eyes to follow something around the room. Just like I talked about the light, having different elements can do the exact same thing. When you're using a wood species though, the secret is to repeat it somewhere else. So if you have a walnut coffee table, somewhere you want to include a similar walnut finish somewhere so you can have that sense of repetition that creates a beautiful sense of balance in the room. Maybe it's matching the legs to another furniture piece or floating shelves. There are so many endless opportunities to really repeat a finish or a pattern. Regardless of what species you choose to use in your home, whether it be oak, maple, pine, walnut, whatever you mix it with, it's best to always have a contrasting stain or finish. Each wood tends to have its own very distinctive undertone and undercolor, so trying to match them doesn't always turn out as well as you think it's going to. This next myth segues perfectly from our last one about matching wood colors, and it's the old term that so many people live by, and it was your furniture should all match. Jail.
Right to jail, right away.
Like, this is another flashback that's giving me big box sets from the Brick or Lazy Boy, and you have those oversized, massive, like 5 to 8 piece matching sets. For the living room, you had the 3-seater, the 2-seater, the recliner, the coffee table, the matching side tables, like every possible accessory was the exact same. Now, listen. I know if you had that in the 80s and the 90s, you were the vision of wealth. Like, everyone was like, oh my God, this is a beautiful set. But in this day and age, there are still some people that think that matching sets are ideal. And while there isn't anything inherently wrong with it, it just doesn't do anything good for your space. It's very obvious that you bought them all from the exact same store, which once again, doesn't give any dimension or detail to the space. It comes off super flat because it's the same thing repeated everywhere. And I know you got it from the Brick. You should feel personally attacked. Juxtaposing pieces with each other allow your space to look more thoughtfully designed. And no, that does not mean to go completely opposite with like a high contrast black and white. Keep in mind there are still needs to be a pattern or style that's repeated in the whole space for it to feel right and balanced. When I say this, a perfect example is a dining table and chairs that come to mind. Find a complementing finish that works well to contrast it without being too off-putting. So a dark chair with a light wood table or a dark marble table with a light chair always comes off more chic than a matching brown wood set. Plus, it gives your space way more personality when you have these beautiful complementing pieces. Even in the bedroom, I like to have matching nightstands, but the bed frame and headboard, I will usually find something to give it a little bit more depth. This one really isn't a myth, I suppose, but it's a good common theme or a thought process that a lot of clients, which I have, is keep your ceiling white because it makes your space feel larger. Honestly, I think this myth was just created by an interior designer that was either bored or lazy and honestly just didn't know what to do with the ceiling. So they're like, you know what, just leave it white. It's plain, it's simple, it will always do well. I've said this multiple times across my platforms, that your ceiling is the 5th wall in a space that is often forgotten about. Yes, leaving it all white is always a safe bet when you don't know what to do with it, but typically it's reserved for larger open concept spaces because it is so vast. Just look at these incredible examples of these spaces. Granted, not all are going to work with any interior design style, and not everyone has the space or budget for some of these details, but this is the perfect opportunity to really do something fun and equally extend the height of the space by carrying that same color onto the ceiling. This is visually going to make your space feel larger. Even adding an unexpected wallpaper up there is a really beautiful opportunity to allow you to capture the attention of yourself and your guests to really draw your eyes up, which at the end of the day, like I've said before, tricks your mind into thinking the ceiling is higher than it is. I also know that wallpaper can be extremely costly depending on where you're getting it from. So I always recommend trying this in a small room first, like a powder room or a bathroom, to really see if it feels right in your space before committing to a larger space to make a big impact. Color drenching is an incredible opportunity and I always recommend it. It is really painting the entire space. The walls, the ceiling, the trim, the doors, all the same color is an absolute vibe in my opinion, because it always looks so good where everything has this beautiful same finish. Now I know this one's going to be a little controversial because trends are just that. They're out just as fast as they came in. Like they didn't even exist in the first place because they are so short-lived. The myth in question is that you should never partake in trends. You should avoid them altogether. Once again, much like the paint myth, this is only partially true. Sometimes trends can really introduce you into design elements that suit your space perfectly that are sometimes overlooked. It can really allow you to fall in love with your space again if you feel like it's missing something. Do not be scared to embrace trends to an extent. After all, it's popular for a reason. And yes, most design styles throughout the ages started as trends. Not everything caught on, but there are elements that always stick. When it comes to trends, I always recommend partaking in them at a smaller scale. Do not, and I repeat, do not commit to large scale furniture pieces and colors that are trendy to take up large portions of your space or even your budget. Do not go diving into buying a new sofa or rug with the hottest new textile just because it's super fun and unique, because you are going to hate it in no time. And I would hate to see you spend so much money on something that you end up hating in a short period. Bringing in smaller elements like decor, throw pillows, or even little object pieces here and there are the perfect way to really allow you to commit to it without getting too bored of those large scale pieces. Hold on to them when you get bored of them for next time, or even donate it to someone new to really give them a new life. Now I'm gonna hear, Phoenix, you're contributing to the machine of consumerism. Listen here, let me live. Let me have some fun. I am well aware that I am trapped in a cycle of consumerism, okay? You do not want to see my closet. It is already overflowing. I understand that I am easily burdened and to purchase anything that I am given an ad to.
Get in, loser, we're going shopping.
But keep this in mind. Trendy items bring short-term joy. And just that. You should be able to bring joy into your life regardless if it's short-term or long-term. So enjoy what you can. Last on the myth list is everyone telling you patterns will make your space look too busy. And while I do partially agree with this sentiment, if I'm being honest, it just means you're not using the right patterns. So many people are afraid to use patterns in their space because it feels extremely overwhelming, and you're not wrong. But I'm going to debunk it to make it feel a little bit more practical on how to use the right ones in your space. It's important to balance pattern and avoid any visual overload. By incorporating multiple patterns, you can add depth and visual interest in an otherwise boring room, if I'm being honest. The key is to scale these patterns and mix different types, such as florals, stripes, and geometrics. This really allows you to anchor these solid colors and neutrals to create a cohesive and harmonious look. I personally tend to avoid most patterns because it's not my personal style, nor is it most. But if you know anything about design, then you probably have heard of the Queen, Kelly Wearstler. No one quite does patterns like she does in her interior design styles because she is known for mixing prints and patterns, and the way she does it is a perfect example of picking colors and undertones that complement each other, that still create a story in your space and really allow you to follow through visually from one pattern pointing to the next and leading you through the space. This takes me back to the point that I said before, that it's all about a sense of repetition and balance. If you want to explore with patterns and shapes in your space to give it a whole new meaning of dimension, I want you to find two that complement each other and start with the decor. Pillows and blankets are going to make it feel like your space can really commit to it without going at a larger scale. I know it sounds scary, but trust me, it is so worth it. I feel like I'm gonna have to turn this into a series because there are so many interior design myths out there that honestly make people pigeonhole themselves into a very specific and particular bland style in their home. Have fun with your space. Don't just let it feel like it's confined by made-up rules. Your space should be a reflection of who you are inside and out. So by all means, have fun with your space. As much as we want to have that Pinterest-worthy showroom, we all know that one corner of every home or space that everything gets shoved into. Sometimes it's a drawer, and it's just an area that is overloaded with things that you're hiding that you really don't have room for in your space. Well, except for me, because honestly, my OCD will not allow any of this in my space. If you have heard of any other interior design myths in your life, drop them in the comments below and I'm going to debunk them in the next part. As always, thanks for watching, and that's all for today. Be sure to like this video, and if you haven't already, you can subscribe to my channel. You can also follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Mr. Phoenix Gray. And if you're ever second guessing yourself, just ask, what would Design Daddy do?